intelligent design. What a fucking stupid idea.
ZJ, I think your video brought up some interesting points about gay-hating atheists. I think it's part of human nature to assume that if you have something in common with somebody else, that there's going to be quite a bit of overlap in other areas as well. But that isn't always true. And it's one of the things that makes me scoff at this idea of there being a gay community. Here on YouTube, I say that the atheist community is largely populated by people who seem to be fairly well educated and pretty tolerant. But that's not all of them. There are a couple of high-profile atheists that spring readily to mind, whom I'd regard as being ill-informed, opinionated idiots. So, homophobic atheists shouldn't be that much of a surprise. Atheists may not believe in God, but they are in a society whose morality has its roots in the Judeo-Christian book of gruesome fairy tales. I am a bit surprised, though, that you found atheists to be just as likely to be homophobic as theists, and that's because the results of various surveys that I've read about seem to indicate that there's a strong correlation between homophobia and other forms of intolerance with lower levels of education and intelligence. And similarly, the same figures seem to show that there's a strong correlation between the strength of religious conviction and lower levels of intelligence and education. So I'd have expected that these two groups have a considerable overlap, almost to the point of perhaps being one and the same. I suppose it just goes to show that atheists are people who don't believe in God. A lack of belief in God doesn't necessarily prevent you from being a bigot. It shouldn't be a surprise, but I do have to say that it is disappointing, because I would have expected better from them. Perhaps the fault actually lies with me in judging a book by its cover, and I shouldn't be surprised that there are atheist bigots, just as surprised at my surprise in finding them. Now, your statement about people being okay with gay people subject to certain conditions is a particular bugbear of mine. I've actually had people PM me to say that it's nice to see a gay man who isn't some flaming camp fairy, and I think they actually mean this to be some kind of compliment. But as it happens, it isn't, because firstly, it's a bit presumptuous. They know absolutely nothing about me other than what they see on YouTube. So, for all they know, I could spend most of my day wandering around wearing Baby Jane makeup and leaping about, sprinkling glitter on people while singing show tunes. And that brings me on to my second point. What if I do? How dare anybody condemn me for it? I mean, I've got as much right to live my life in a way that makes me happy as anybody else. And for someone to say to me that they're okay with gay people, as long as they aren't those outrageously camp men or butch women, really belies their statement. Because it's just like saying that you're okay with black people, as long as they aren't really dark-skinned and they try really hard to pass for white. Well, I've got the same message, really, for bigoted atheists as I've got for bigoted religious people. And it's the same message that I've got for racist white people as I have for racist black people. And it's the same message for homophobic heterosexuals as for homophobic homosexuals. And yes, they do exist. The message is this: black, white, gay, straight, religious, atheist, man, woman, tomato, whatever. A bigot is a bigot. And if you want to be a bigot, then that's your right in a free society. But don't expect me to be fooled by lamentable attempts at mimicking tolerance. I'm not, and I'm not alone.